Welcome back, everyone. This is Discussing Who. I am Kyle Jones, and I want to start this week by welcoming back Lee Shackleford. Lee, how are you?
I'm pretty good, considering the quarantine and all that stuff. But, can't complain.
All right. Well, I'm glad to have you here, and glad, as always, to be able to say, welcome back, Clarence Brown. Clarence, how are you?
Doing good, man. Continuing the hunker down mode over here. But overall, everything's going great, man. And as always, happy to be on another episode of Discussing Who. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So anything interesting happened in the lives of Clarence and Lee this week?
Not really, no. Yeah. It's kind of business as usual, right?
Yeah, I went to the beach, caught a baseball game, the usual.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, so
had some guys over to watch the game.
Yeah, more than 10 people.
Yeah.
So in other words, you were all both delusional this week. Is that what you're trying to say?
Exactly.
Yeah, in our dreams.
Exactly. Well, I want to congratulate Lee Shackleford for officially being able to make fun of Batman versus Superman thanks to an episode of Listen, Rinse, Repeat.
Wow. Yeah, well, I just said what was in the script that you wrote. So, but it is up on Listen, Rinse, Repeat now, and is being enjoyed by one and all, I'm sure. For people who have any idea what it's about, I mean, you'll either get it or you don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I want to give a hats off to someone who has never been on Discussing Who, because I don't believe he watches Doctor Who, which is Clarence's brother, Kerry. Actually, I take that back. Kerry has been on Discussing Who on an episode 74, if I remember correct, because he and I kind of swiped Clarence. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but we kind of did the Clarence interview episode. That was episode 74. So yes, Kerry has been on, but he did a fantastic job as the Joker.
Yeah, I said, and I'll say here again, Mark Hamill better watch his back. So it's got Kerry coming up on him.
Indeed.
Well, speaking of things that are like, breaking news. So speaking of the news.
Insert teletype sound.
Exactly. That is one of the things I like so much about doing this podcast, is being able to figure out ways to say, well, speaking of that in the news.
Exactly. Yeah.
So speaking of that in the news, Lee Shackleford, you have a question that we've been asking people recently. So why don't you talk about that real quick?
Yeah. The three of us have been asked to write a chapter for a book that is going to be called Real Characters. And it's a semi-psychological study about fictitious characters, and more importantly, about how we relate to them, we as readers, consumers of media of all kinds. And the three of us have been asked to write about the Doctor. Which is great, of course, but we'd really like to hear from you, our listeners to this show, and hear what you think about what it is that makes the Doctor important to you. Why does the Doctor matter? There's so many ways of phrasing the question, and there are no wrong answers, of course. So we really want to know what you think. Drop some words down and send them to discussingwho@gmail.com. Or you can even leave us a voicemail, but I can't remember the phone number, so I guess you can't do that.
Or you could, if that number is 805-850-3946.
Thank Jupiter somebody remembers that phone number.
Yes. Speaking of somebody that I want to thank, I know that they did another rewatch, and the entire Doctor Who family seems like, from actors to writers to producers to showrunners, everybody is seemingly getting into this, let's all watch episodes together and live tweeting them. And Lee, you sent a video, and I will insert the audio in there after we talk about it, of one particular actor that was responding to Journey's End. So you want to kind of fill us in there?
Yeah, to me, it's just the sweetest thing is John Barrowman weeping as he watches everybody, including him, crowded around the TARDIS console at the end of that episode.
So that's what it's all about. All of us. around the TARDIS console. Look at that. Glorious. Sarah Jane. I'm a big softie. Anyway, that is the most amazing thing ever. Oh, beautiful. There we go. I'm a big softie. Sorry, Russell. Sorry, everybody. Love to you all. Gotta finish watching the end.
He's so moved just by the image of all of these friends and companions there together, all in the TARDIS. It's just lovely to see him react so honestly and so deeply to that.
Yes. And it was also, if I'm not correct, or if I'm not incorrect, excuse me, this was done on Sunday, which also marks the anniversary of Elizabeth Sladen's passing. We as fandom received, I would say, a gift from Russell T. Davies that was then read and then made into a video that was put on YouTube. So, Lee, why don't you tell us, and I think you both have seen it, but tell us a little bit what that is, just in a nutshell.
It's a terrific idea, and I was just blown away by it, because since we're all in isolation, you couldn't do a sort of memorial service for Sarah Jane in which you got all of these actors who've played characters from Doctor Who, to get them all in the same room. But you could do sort of a video diary where people are leaving their recollections, not of Liz Sladen, of course, but of Sarah Jane. And it is, the conceit is carried out so well. And for a lot of these actors that we haven't seen in a long time, like since the end of Sarah Jane Adventures, it was just so touching, so moving to see them again, and to see them talking about this magnificent woman they've lost. So it's a way of talking about Elizabeth Sladen, whom all these people knew and loved in real life, but they do it through the method of doing a little Doctor Who adventure in which all these people talk about this companion who's gone.
So you both have listened to it all the way through. So really quick, without any spoilers, tell me and tell everyone listening, what did you guys think of that? And Clarence, why don't you go first?
I kind of think Lee said it well already, but for me, I don't know if it resonated as much because I didn't know any of these characters who made these guest appearances. But I do enjoy what they did with their performances. I thought it was well done. Just a well-written story around remembering this character / person that so many people in Doctor Who know and love. So I found it very touching, regardless of me not having ever seen one episode of the Sarah Jane Adventures.
Yeah.
All right. So, Lee, any other things you want to add before I give my 2 cents?
I've been very curious to know how Clarence felt about that, not knowing Sarah Jane Adventures as you and I do.
So, as you know, I sent you guys a picture that I made it through 30 seconds and literally could not watch anymore. I don't know. I want to see it. And what I think I am going to do at this point is I'm going to actually watch series 4 or the 5. I think it was 4, wasn't it? 4?
Of Sarah Jane?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's series 4, yeah.
Okay. The last series 4, I'm going to actually go back and watch that, and then I'm going to listen to this. Because I think that way it's a little bit in chronological order, per se, since I've never seen that. Yeah. What I really find amazing is I thought this was just a narration. So I just now learned listening to you guys talk, which is the reason I was so quiet for a second. I had no idea that there were actually people who participated, loaned their voices other than the gentleman who was narrating it.
Oh, they're on camera.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
and that makes it harder, believe me, because they are looking you in the eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kyle, you definitely need to do this a la Seska Says reaction style, and we want to see these tears flow, man.
No.
Ooh, that's pretty personal, but
if I can't
John
even,
Barrowman can do it.
if I cannot even, seriously, as soon as I realized, seriously, that when it got to 30 seconds and I realized what I was listening to, I couldn't, it was like, I just clicked and I was like, I cannot go far. I can't go any further than that.
Yeah.
And I want to tie that back to what your question was a moment ago, Lee, as to what does Doctor Who mean to us as the character. I think necessarily Doctor Who, but the Doctor Who universe, what makes these characters emote to us in such a way that I'm sitting here kind of, voice kind of quivering a little bit, talking over a fictional character.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And I don't know the answer to that, but I'm just posing it out there to anyone listening. What is the answer? Why do they speak to us the way they do?
And that's what this whole book is going to be about, with a whole host of fictitious characters. But it is a mystery, and I think it's a real important one that we as people really need to plumb the depths of this. How can we get so emotionally attached to fictitious characters? And really, there actually is a scientific, at least there's a theory. But yeah, we want to know what do people think? What are you thinking as fans of shows?
Well, speaking of what people think, Clarence Brown asked me a question the other night that he posed again last night on our recording of discussing Trek. And I asked him to pose it again to you tonight on this episode. So Clarence, why don't you take it away?
So the question I posed was, which franchise has the best villains? Or do both of them even have villains? That's something to ponder as well. Star Trek or Doctor Who?
Huh. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess there's that troublesome word best again, right? What is that? What does that even mean?
Yeah.
But there's a greater variety, wicked people and monsters in Doctor Who, and that's often fun. I have trouble taking some of them seriously. Whereas you think about the Klingons, or back in the day when they were the bad guys, or the Romulans and many others in the Star Trek universe. Yeah, I don't have any trouble taking them seriously sometimes. What was your answer to that? What do you?
So I kind of think what we came to on that was Star Trek, from my opinion, other than the movies, it doesn't really have sort of that tentpole villain that you can just point at. And I think as Kyle said, this most of the conflict is political, interfaction or faction against faction, So that's kind of where we landed on that Star Trek doesn't really, I'm holding quotes, have villains. But again, like certainly when we get to the movies, you have plenty of them to look at.
Yeah. And I would say that's, welcome to discussing Trek. I would say that's just consistent with Roddenberry's vision of the world and of the future too. That very often the person you think is your enemy is somebody with whom there's a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
That doesn't come up in Doctor Who so often. The Suntarans are just the Suntarans, and there's not, try to make a Jadoon laugh, But yeah, like to me, the great Star Trek villain is Khan, of course, but he's got a point. The man has a point, and by and by you just start to realize the real problem here is that he is nuts, So, and who's to blame for that? So even there. So, and it's why people like Nero, for example, just aren't as interesting to me, because I don't know, there's just no other layers to it. They're just angry and.
Very good segue, because I was about to say, and speaking of people who are just plain nuts.
Yeah.
Why don't we get into our review? The reason we are here tonight, I'm glad we remembered it, because it is Remembrance of the Daleks. I guess it's time for me to say, if you have not seen Remembrance of the Daleks, go out, watch that story, put us on pause, come back, because from this moment forward, spoilers.
Spoilers. Affirmative. Spoilers. Spoilers. Affirmative. Spoilers.
Alrighty, the spoiler warning has gone out and we are back to review Remembrance of the Daleks. This is the first story of season 25 of Doctor Who, and it aired in 4 parts from the 5th to the 26th October 1998. Summary view. Clarence, I'll start with you. Summary view. What did you think of this story?
You can't see me, but I'm smiling right now. I freaking love Ace, man. She's so awesome. She's so awesome. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Every moment she was on screen, I just feel like she was badass. Don't take nothing. We'll charge in there with the best of them. Yeah, I love her as a companion, man. I really do. I really do. As far as the episode, I think there was a lot of undertones they were trying to put in the episode. As far as some of the stuff we hear at the very beginning, and then this Imperial versus these, this renegade faction. I think they were trying to throw some undertones at us that I'm not quite clear on, but I'm sure we'll discuss. I found that all interesting. I really enjoyed the Doctor in this episode. I thought he was fun, much more coherent than he was in the last episode we saw with him in it. So yeah, I very much enjoyed this, man. It was, 4, I think, pretty fun-filled episodes. There wasn't a lot of dragging going on or dragging in the story going on. So I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. So Lee, what say you?
I wrote a very simple response because I knew you would ask this question. I wrote, this is the antidote to Time in the Rani. Because at long last we have Ace, the companion who doesn't scream.
Oh.
Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many other things to love about Remembrance of the Daleks, and I've seen it many times, and I think I enjoyed it more this time than ever before. It just, to me, it just keeps getting better and better. So, what about you?
This is another reason why I am so happy, glad, ecstatic that we are going back and reviewing some of these older stories, because we've talked before about watching these episodes in a different mindset because we're reviewing them. So for any time that I have ever said that I was not really a fan of the 7th Doctor, this story and this mindset completely changed my opinion of 7th Doctor and Ace. I had so much fun watching this. I would go so far as to say I could have easily almost forgotten that this was in 1988. I could have said easily that this almost felt like current Doctor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels very modern.
Talking modern, what I found really interesting is this was season 25, so 25th season. So it's like an anniversary season, and they start out by going back to the beginning. So Lee, what did you think about the return to the junkyard, returning to Coal Hill School?
And to me, it's one of the fun things about this episode is that we literally go back to the junkyard at Totter's Lane. We go to Coal Hill School, not just to Coal Hill School, but we see, but Ace picks up a book about the French Revolution, exactly as Susan does in Unearthly Child.
Oh, wow.
And in fact, I just read that Sophie Aldred, when she saw that in the script, she made a point of watching Unearthly Child so that she could get herself framed in the shot the same way that
that is cool.
that Carol Ann Ford did, and so on. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. This is a script by Ben Aronovich, who is well known these days as the writer of a series of detective novels called The Rivers of London. But this is him when he was just 25 years old, and I just think it's a great script. And he's obviously a fan. He's getting to sort of touch on the show that he would have been 1 year old when the show began, but this is the show he grew up with, and he's having fun getting to go back to the beginning. And he places the joke. I know we got to get to this sooner or later, but Ace looks away just in time to miss Doctor Who coming on the television.
Yes,
yeah, that was cool. That was freaking cool.
Little joke of Ben Aronovich's, but
well, they are in 1963.
Yes, they are. So the significance of Doctor Who existing canonically inside Doctor Who is kind of staggering.
Yeah.
So it's a documentary then.
Mm. Well, you know what? That reminds me similar to how they used to do in the Fantastic Four up until definitely into the 80s, where they would refer to themselves as being, Marvel Comics publishes our official adventures.
Yes. And Stan and Jack would come sniffing around to find out what had happened.
Yes.
Yeah. That's right. So, and Aronovich says it's just a joke. It is never intended for anybody to take this seriously, that Doctor Who exists in Doctor Who canon, but it's a funny idea. So, and as my son, when he and I watched this one several times together, and he liked saying, "Ace has the baseball bat of Omega," which she briefly does.
What did you think, Clarence? I know you've seen, An Unearthly Child. Any thoughts about seeing this junkyard again? And then I'll give my idea.
To be quite honest, it didn't even jump out at me at all. I mean, I saw the sign. I was like, okay. And I know the significance there, but it really didn't resonate to me as much. Maybe the school resonated more with me than the actual, the junkyard. Yeah. And then school for various other reasons. We've seen it many, many times over the years. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Clarence, on the school. I will say this about the junkyard. It felt, no pun intended, bigger on the inside than it did the first time, because I'm sure it was just a sound stage.
That's right. Time. Yeah, this one was outdoors. Yes.
So a little side note to the gate going in, they misspelled Foreman this time around.
Yes.
It's Forman, not Foreman. But just looking at it, I didn't immediately catch that.
Yeah, I had that pointed out to me too.
So what time period are they in on the first episode of Doctor Who? Are they not in 1963?
I have always assumed that they are. Which is why it would be awkward if Ace actually saw that episode, because she'd see that they're at Cold Hill School. Are they here right now? What's happening?
Well, that was back in the days where it was such a bad thing. Remember, it was not an animosity, but an atrocity, or, it was whatever Gat said in Series 12 for the two time streams to intersect.
Right. What you're quoting, Gat?
Yeah. I'm working on acceptance.
All right.
Well, okay.
The other thing, and speaking of working on acceptance, I want you guys, after we finish, to go to YouTube, and anyone listening to go to YouTube and search for Doctor Who Series 11 trailer. And it is specifically, the one I'm meaning is the one where you see the companions sitting either at home or in a diner, and then you see the Doctor outside. I don't think it is the same diner, but whenever I was watching that, I kept going. For the first couple of times I saw it, I was like, wow, this really kind of has a vibe to it. And then I was like, now I know what it is. It felt like that diner that they were in for that Series 11 trailer.
Interesting. You mean the diner in Remembrance of the Daleks? Yeah.
Yes. The diner from this episode reminds me of the diner that the characters were in the trailer.
You mean the diner with Jeffrey from Fresh Prince?
Yes, exactly.
That's right.
I was like, freaking Jeffrey!
Hey! Wait a minute, what year is this? Yeah.
Which would actually be just, in time-wise, just a couple of years before he became Jeffrey.
Yeah. Well,
it did have very much a sitcom feel to it, that diner. So it felt like other shows I've seen.
Yeah, it's lit very flatly. And I've never seen this with my own eyes, but I've seen photographs of this, that sometimes when a shot in a shoot like this is supposed to be in a diner, and the point is that there's a big window through which you can look out onto the street, that one of the easiest ways to do that is to find the street that you want, and then you bring in a set portion that is literally that window and the chairs around it. And out there in the sunlight, you can just stage that scene, and you frame it so that you can't see that the actors are actually outdoors up against this wall that has the window in it. But it allows you to get what you want, because what you're really focusing on is what's happening outside the window. Yeah.
Oh,
so
wow.
They very well could have done that here. And that's why it looked familiar to you, because that's a trick that's used often enough that they would all kind of tend to look the same.
Interesting. And considering what you were saying in regards to you, they did not have much of a budget back then. That's even more plausible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, for some reason, I felt like they did a good job on a budget on this one.
Yes, they did. There's a story about that, and I was just reading about this today. Andrew Morgan, who directed this, you may remember Andrew Morgan from directing Time and the Ronnie. And he was kind of eager to redeem himself. And he read the script and saw a lot of potential, and so he just ordered things to be built for this. I mean, that's not a miniature when that Dalek shuttle lands. That's more or less like, when you saw the doors open and people got in and out of it and so on, they built all of that. And of course they're lowering it on a crane. But in other episodes, we would have made that as a miniature and we would have cut it in with color separation, and it wouldn't have looked right. And, no, he said, hey, let's just see if we can't build the thing. Yeah. So they ran over budget by £13,000, and the BBC barred him for directing.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah.
So, yeah, it looks like there's a lot of money spent on this because Andrew Morgan was shooting. Yeah. He was betting the store.
Yeah, overall, I thought the effects that were used were really well done. Other than there's a few scenes with the shuttle landing that I thought were not great. But other than that, I was pretty well pleased with what they were able to accomplish. It's interesting hearing that story about the budget.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens all the time.
Well, but you know what? It tells us one thing. It says, spend a little bit, loosen the pocketbook just a little bit. I'm not saying go crazy with it, but loosen it just a little bit, and you have viewer reaction. I mean, same person that's, directing it, but look at the difference in reception to Time in the Ronnie and this.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I noticed that the episodes per season by these last few years are much shorter. Well, it's half as long. Only about 13 or 14 episodes, which I found that pretty interesting. I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah, and this is the time of Michael Grade, and he is doing his best to kill this show. But yeah, maybe if you're making fewer episodes, you do get to concentrate on each one a little bit more. I don't know.
Maybe so.
Well, yeah, that's what I keep wondering. When we have these 10-episode seasons, I think, we've been here before.
Well, all I know is I think I've made the decision that from henceforth, from this moment forward, every time we say Michael Grade, I'm going to insert booze.
That's BOOS. Yes,
yeah,
right.
not booze.
You're not going to raise the bottle and take a swig?
No.
To drink every time we say Michael Grade.
Yeah.
Michael Grade. I learned that he, one of the things that he just likes to do is to let it be known that if people want to insinuate him into scripts, and it's a TV show that takes place in the present day, that he'll appear as himself. My wife and I were watching a Jonathan Creek just the other day where there's a TV big shot, and he says, well, I can't stand here talking about this. I have to go meet with Michael Grade. Michael! And the door opens, and he goes out and shakes hands, and it's Michael Grade. And he doesn't say anything, but that means he got a paycheck for being on a show that... Anyway.
Oh, that makes him
He's like
even
the hype
worse.
man or the producer that's on the stage, with the rapper.
Exactly, yeah.
The one that nobody likes.
Right.
But somebody that we did like in this one was the Doctor. And I want to put this one to Clarence first. And the reason being, you kind of mentioned how different this was compared to Time in the Ronnie. So what would you say is the biggest difference between the Doctor that we saw in Time in the Ronnie and the Doctor we saw in this story?
I feel like it was less buffoonery going on. I don't know quite how to put it. I felt like he was much more of my interpretation of how I feel a doctor should act and take command and be in charge. He was all of that. And I think one of the things that made him shine so well is Ace. I see what you guys have been talking about. They are great together. They really are. And the chemistry, I think it works well with her being portraying a little bit younger with him. I think that dynamic makes him better, and it makes the duo pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, agree completely. This is the seventh Doctor that I know. That's sort of why I was surprised at how off-center he is throughout Time in the Rani. But and credit must also be given not just to Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldred's tremendous chemistry, but to Andrew Cartmel, who has as the showrunner right now, he has the plan of getting the Doctor more into the center of the action, that somehow stories before this time have sort of had the Doctor being dragged into things almost, like he's not the one that the show's about, Yeah. Time in the Rani being maybe a good example of that. So he really wants the Doctor to be the one who's making things happen. And so he tasks Ben Aronovich with this story that's going to be about the Doctor's got an errand. And he knows he's going to have these obstacles to overcome. And Ace is along for the ride, and it's exciting. And we see the Doctor being super smart, as he should be, but he also gets flummoxed sometimes, because sometimes the unexpected happens, and so he'll grab for an idea about how to deal with it. And sometimes he's wrong. And, I just love it.
I definitely felt like he was clever, or one step ahead, like I expect the Doctor to be in this, series. He was, especially by the end there, he, is way ahead of who at the end there. So I don't know. I just feel like he was very smart. I guess you can call it calculated, but that's what I've come to expect of the Doctor, to just be clever. And he was clever.
Very well said. And from both of you, I thought that he was everything, like I said, that you guys just said. What I found most interesting about him was, I think that when I've gone back and watched Seventh Doctor stories, even though I've seen this one before, they were only on a one watch through. Like, I'll tell you how long it's been since I've seen this story. I got it from Netflix back when Netflix sent you DVDs that long ago. And I was just marveled at how much I enjoyed his Doctor in this, making me want to watch more from him.
Yeah. Yeah, can I just interject, like, what I don't like about his Doctor?
Sure.
Sylvester McCoy. I don't like the hat, and I don't like the umbrella. It just, something is just, I could take the hat, I guess, but the umbrella just has to go. It's just one step in the weird section. Really,
because it has a big question mark on it, or just
him running around with umbrella all day just feels weird. And then the hat. I mean, I saw. The reason I don't like the hat is I saw a picture with him and Sophie Aldred he didn't have the hat on, and they looked so freaking cool together. I'm like, why does he have the hat? I'll drop that picture somewhere in the chat, but they look really cool together about the hat. So nitpicking.
Do either of you know the story behind that?
I believe so, but.
All right, what do you think? And then I'll counter or agree.
I just know that the umbrella was something that was forced on him, and that he had the idea of carrying it around in his suit pocket, that he hangs it on his own jacket. And that was sort of a compromise, that if I have to have this thing, and I'll carry it around. Because, of course, this was John Nathan Turner trying to sell the umbrellas, But I don't know a story about the hat, I don't think.
Well, no. What I was more so saying was not necessarily the hat itself, but that he, Sylvester McCoy, didn't care for all, just like what you were saying. He didn't like the umbrella. He did not like the vest with the, with the question marks on it. He did get what he wanted to wear, but he was only seen wearing that for maybe 2 or 3 minutes at best. It was in the 1996 movie. You don't see him wearing that. You see him wearing normal stuff.
That's right. He has a red waistcoat on. Yeah. And, he finally got to lose the question mark sweater, and then they killed him. So, spoilers.
If he would have only known those question marks was protecting him all that time.
That's right. They were making him bulletproof. He had no idea. Yeah.
So here's something that I found interesting, and this makes me think again about how Chibnall may be more brilliant than Kyle, not we, Kyle is giving him credit for. Because I remember last time it was like, not Kyle, but anyway, that Kyle was giving him credit for is we see and hear in this story, there's the hand of Omega or Omega, however you want to say it, that the doctor basically hid there while Susan was attending Cold Hill School.
Yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere. I'm like, what? I went with it, but I was, of course, confused. But, if you had to hide it somewhere, and it seems like a pretty good place. I don't know. It was interesting and weird at the same time to see that.
Oh, I just think that whole notion is fascinating, that it suggests that this is even why the Doctor came to the Earth in the first place. That in Unearthly Child, the Doctor says, how could they imagine what it would be like to be renegades? And that was a mystery that was planted in 1963. But yeah, now it's sort of like the series itself is saying, well, what renegade sounds like he's running away, or what? Did he do something, or what? Well, he's got the hand of Omega.
So what were your thoughts about the concept of the hand of Omega?
It's what Alfred Hitchcock called a MacGuffin, which is just the whatever thing is that we're going to imbue with importance to the story, and then everybody's going to be after that, the Maltese Falcon or whatever, It almost doesn't matter. It's just the thing that everybody wants. I do love that you can, by getting into the vicinity of it, you can turn an aluminum baseball bat into something that has superpowers. That's my favorite part of that whole thing. And don't you love that the Doctor can order it around?
Yes.
Yeah. And nobody in 1963 didn't, think the floating coffin looking thing was weird, No.
And the interesting thing, we never see what's inside the casket, do we?
No, we never see what it actually looks like.
Interesting. I keep thinking, and this may be from watching, the Avengers movies. I keep looking at it as like an infinity gauntlet that someone's going to.
Yeah. It needs to somehow be like a hand. Yeah.
Feels Indiana Jones a little bit.
Ooh. Spoiler for End of Time Part 1 and 2, but I wonder if that gauntlet that Rassilon was wearing, if that was the hand of Omega.
Oh, that's interesting.
They never really named what it was.
No, he just had it. Yeah. Huh. I'd call that the hand of Omega.
Hey.
It can't be, at that moment, it was the hand of Rassilon, but yeah. I was talking about the coffin. I'm sure you caught that the Undertaker is surprised because he's blind.
Yeah.
And he's talking to the Doctor, and he says that he thought he was supposed to be an old geezer with white hair. That's how he had been described to him. And but that's who he was when that Undertaker encountered him last. So
your voice has changed.
Yes, your voice has changed.
But if this is 1963, from the perspective of that Undertaker,
right,
this may have been a week or two ago.
Exactly, it could have been yesterday. We don't know.
I'm gonna break my brain, guys. Stop it.
Love it.
All right. Well, since we don't want to break your brain, I'll break your ears instead. And that is by talking about compare. But this is a good way because I'm going to heal your ears. Maybe I should say, because
we're not going to get Mel in here again.
No. But we are going to compare Ace and Mel. What other than the screeching, what was the one major difference between Ace and Mel?
Is there really a comparison? Okay, I just know Mel from that one series, so maybe you guys can speak better. But man, Ace is just badass, man. I mean, she's walking around with a backpack with explosives in it and this powerful, infused baseball bat.
Yes.
Come on, man.
She had a boombox.
She had a boombox. Come on, man. Come on.
And she was able to keep the baseball bat of Omega. But
yeah, that was awesome. She took a boombox back to the 60s and didn't give a crap about it. I'm walking down the street.
Yeah. I'm changing the future of electronics.
Yeah.
And I don't care.
I don't care. Yeah. Well, and really, it's the bat is one thing, but it's the Dalek calls her the small female. And she says, "Who are you calling small?" Wham! Who else would just walk up and hit the Dalek with a?
Yeah, bat? Man. Oh, And that escape sequence when I think it's part of the same sequence you were just talking about, when she gets out of the lab, just freaking awesome. She jumps on top of the table, goes through the window, rolls, and then makes it down the stairs. She's awesome, dude. I mean,
I've heard people say
she did a lot of her stunts too. I don't know if she did that one. They probably didn't let her jump through the window like that.
But it still looked cool.
Still looked cool, yeah.
But, I've heard people say before, and now I really understand why, that if it weren't for Ace, we would not have the companions that we have today. And seeing her in this, I think I understand what they mean, because she is a template. The only thing that I would think would come close would be Sarah Jane, but she really kind of broke the mold of that damsel in distress and, I need somebody in the doctor to come help me and rescue me.
I think she's more active than the companions we have now, in a sense. To me, she's maybe a product of the 80s and 90s action movies, that type of character. It's even the companions today. I don't feel like, from what I've seen from this episode, this series, so, maybe it's up and down, but she's very much very active and in it. And man, she just don't take any crap.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We've only seen her once before in the continuity here, but we do know that one of the reasons why she's considered by many to be a juvenile delinquent is because she's discovered or invented this explosive that she calls Nitro 9. And the doctor at one point asks her if she's carrying it in her backpack, and she lies to his face. But what I love about that is he knows. Because then when they're confronted with the Daleks, he says, Ace, give me some of that Nitro 9 you're not carrying. Quickly.
And Larry says, I wish we had more Nitro 9.
That's right.
But I think that is another testament of what you're saying, Clarence, is you're talking about, and you're both talking about the chemistry and laughing and enjoying the chemistry that these two actors had. This is the first full story that they had together as companion and doctor. And you're saying, oh, well, this was so wonderful. This was so great. That's a testament to how well the two actors pull this off.
And I think really the script and direction, because one of the things that struck me watching it this time was that Ace lets her hair down in many ways, literally at some point. Of course, Sophie has that gorgeous chestnut hair, but we don't usually see what the companions are doing while they're being told to stay put. And we have a pretty interesting subplot going with her. And what it does is it reminds us that she's not living to do whatever the doctor's doing. Her life goes on.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the ways in which, without Ace, we wouldn't have Rose or Martha or anybody else. So.
Well, one other thing I want to mention before, or just as a side note to Ace, she likes bacon sandwiches. I love bacon sandwiches. Not bacon, lettuce, and tomato, but bacon sandwiches. So
bacon, and bacon.
Yes. So it was like, okay, I wish I would have known this, and then I would have been loving you all these years. So.
Yeah. There's a great scene with her. I think it was like the cliffhanger where the doctor gets locked in the stairwell, and the dude like kicks her. And just to tell you how much she imprinted on me so quickly, I was pissed when he kneed her and threw her on the ground.
Do not hurt Ace.
Ooh, I was mad, but she got him back.
She got him. Yeah. Well, the doctor says, "What's wrong with him? Stomachache." It really is. I wanted to point out the thing that tickled me. I know I've mentioned to you guys before that I've seen all of the various iterations of the Quatermass stories. That was a British science fiction adventures, and in some ways kind of laid the ground for Doctor Who. Anyway, but Bernard Quatermass works for the British Rocket Group in those stories, and there's just another little joke in this script that when Alison and Rachel are leaving the room at one point, they're talking about how crazy all this is with the Daleks and everything, and one of them says, I should call Bernard, but he's having enough trouble with the British rocket group.
Oh, that's cool.
So Quatermass also exists in the Doctor Who universe, and as does the show itself. But,
interesting. Well, if you were to read the Day of the Doctor novelization, you might find out that the reason that the Doctor Who movies that existed is because of the Doctor.
That's right. That's another one of those things.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, speaking of, and you just segued into that very well by mentioning Rachel Jensen, I want to talk about the supporting cast real quick. You've got Group Captain Gilmore and Professor Rachel Jensen. Mm-hmm. And Lee, I want to point this one at you. Did they remind you of any characters that we've seen before?
Well, the Doctor calls Group Captain, he calls him Brigadier at one point. And I love that. But I wondered if I was imagining it just because we've been so encouraged in this episode to be thinking about the early days of Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. But the first time I saw Dr. Jensen, right?
Right.
I thought, is she supposed to be Verity Lambert?
Ooh, that's good. I didn't think of that.
But because if I understand right, Verity Lambert was sort of a trademark of hers, was the little pearl choker, like this scientist has. But and she's sort of tall, queenly woman. It's 1963, but that means that she also looks like Barbara, who people always said was sort of Verity Lambert's avatar on Doctor Who. So is that what you're going for?
No, but I love that. But no, where I was actually going was I thought that was a nod to the first season with the third Doctor when he first was at UNIT, and you had she was before Liz Shaw. Liz Shaw.
No, it is Liz Shaw.
It is Liz Shaw that I'm talking about.
Right.
But I did think that she looked and favored what Barbara would have looked like. But then if you go into this was the same time frame that Barbara came from, it made perfect sense. But I love the Verity Lambert connection.
Which may just be my imagination, but yeah, certainly the group captain in every way is going to have to remind the Doctor of the Brigadier. And of course, the group captain doesn't know what he's talking about, but
right.
It's just like, no, we've got the guns we need to fight these things off. It's like, no, you don't. How many times do I have to do this?
Well, we've not talked about the big bads of the story in specific. We've talked vaguely and we've danced around them, but we had the Daleks returning, or as Ace would say, the Dalek. So
Daleks.
The Daleks have returned. What was your thought? And I'm going to point this one to you, Clarence, because you mentioned it earlier. This idea of Dalek fighting Dalek. What was your thoughts on that?
So I don't, how can I say that? I don't know what they're really going for, because to me it felt a little muddled, because I'm like, are we trying to bring up some of the World War stuff here? German, purity race type of stuff. I felt that a little bit. Then I felt like, are we going for the racial divide here? Which I think they do mention that they're an altered version of the Dalek, therefore they're not pure. So different. And they even play a little bit of Martin Luther King at the very beginning of the series.
That's right.
So it seems like they're going for two separate things that are kind of similar. So I like the undertone of that message, and they just didn't hammer us over the head with it. But it was in the episode if you dig a little deep to see the differences between these two. And other than that, I'll just add real quick before I hand it off. I like the fact that the Doctor was able to explain Genesis of the Daleks in like a minute of talking.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that. How come I couldn't have got that in New Who somewhere? Because I really appreciated that, man.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, he does. He gives it to Ace while they're sitting in the car. Yeah. It's
awesome.
The whole plot. Yeah. Took him 6 episodes to do it on the show.
All right, Lee, what say you? What did you think of Dalek v. Dalek?
Clarence, I think your instincts are probably right about that. I don't know for certain, but I mean, the Daleks have always stood in for Nazi idealism, for fascist idealism on the show, and that was by design. That's what Terry Nation always wanted, was for them to be the sort of what makes them pathetic is the racial purity thing. And so it can't be a coincidence that we have that moment where Ace sees the sign hanging in the window of her boarding house and turns it around, and she just can't believe what she's seeing. And of course, this is Mike's mother who owns the place. So, that's got to be sort of changing how she thinks about Mike. It's like, I'm going to ask him about this.
Yeah, great.
I read that Andrew Cartmel and the director, that they both said their one regret about that is that she should have torn it up.
Yes, I read that. I remember seeing that.
But yeah, so it's 1963, and here are the Daleks trying to kill each other because one of them is somehow slightly different from the other. It's like, okay, yeah, we get it.
So I think, Lee, you said that one of the cliffhangers really you thought was really, really good. What did you think seeing it for the very first time and seeing a levitating Dalek?
And that's for Clarence, right?
Or either one of you.
Yeah, I do remember the first time I saw it, and of course I was seeing it in continuity, so I hadn't seen any of the flying Daleks that we have now. And I just remember thinking, okay, so these new Daleks can go up the stairs. This is going to change everything. But yeah, you can imagine that for the longtime fans at the time, that was a great way to end the episode, with the Doctor just sort of staring at it like, oh.
I was going to make a joke like, well, actually that occurred in the reboot, in the episode Dalek. That's where that actually occurred.
That's true.
No, yeah, this is awesome. This is awesome. Because I remember you mentioned it before when we reviewed that episode, and you were talking about, when this first happened, it was awesome because the Daleks get upstairs. So yeah, seeing this, I thought, okay, that's really freaking cool. That they can even pull off that effect. I mean, I guess it is the late 80s, but still, it looked pretty freaking cool. Yeah. And I pretty much enjoyed that. It was great.
And, I tried to put myself in the mindset of someone watching it in 1988 and seeing that, and you're watching it going, oh crap, a flying Dalek. We've never seen this before, that, because to us watching it in 2020, it's like, oh, no big deal. But the first time seeing it, that's cool.
They fly now. They fly now.
This is all we need.
We see the return of one of my favorite crazy people from Doctor Who, Davros. What did you think of Davros's head covered in, it basically looked like you're wearing a sweater with a bunch of wires glued to it with your
because
Davros
he was
head. Yeah.
But the last time we'd seen him, reverse spoiler for a Sixth Doctor adventure, that we had seen that all that's left of him is his head, and they had his head kind of in a bubble. So now we're seeing him again, and we know that this is all that there is of him. But yeah, it's not a convincing effect this time.
What did you think of seeing our favorite maniacal screaming Davros, Clarence?
I have to say I was a bit surprised at the reveal. I thought that who we come to learn is a little girl in the battle computer. I thought that was Davros. I thought that was him. I'm like, we finally got the reveal of the little girl. I'm like, no, what? So 2 surprises. That was one. And then when we finally got the bald Dalek, what I have written down here, I have bald Dalek and I have machine gun Dalek written down.
Yes.
Both of those are in the episode. But yeah, the reveal certainly got me 100%. I thought, oh, cool. What about you, Kyle?
I shared on Slack a couple of pictures with both of you. One of them is of the special weapons Dalek. It's called from the Doctor Who exhibition. I thought that the picture was of me posing with it, but it's not. It's just one that I took. But I have seen that one, and all these years later, it still looks pretty intimidating. But the other thing was a clip from the Jetsons, because the Dalek Emperor, as you say, the bald Dalek, it made me think of Uniblab. But you have to have grown up with the Jetsons, as I did, to get Uniblab. Anyway.
Well, one thing I think that was cool that they did was for the character, I think that the little girl Dalek wound up being, they used John Leeson, who is the actor who did the voice of K9, to do that to kind of make you think that was Davros. Is that how it went down, Lee?
Yeah, they asked him if he could do kind of a Michael Wisher screamy voice, and and it worked. Fooled Clarence, didn't it?
Yeah, it got me 100%.
Yeah.
Are there any other points that you guys wanted to bring up before we get to our favorite scene?
How do we feel about the Doctor completely annihilating the entire planet of Scott?
I guess weapon's not bad.
Yeah. He won't handle a gun, but he will turn a planet star supernova. Ouch.
Yeah, that, especially when you think of the impact of what happens once we get to New Who, of how it torments him as a character. That was weird to see. And he did it in a semi-triumphant, "Oh, I tricked you" moment.
Right.
Which is just shocking.
Really. If you're taking this seriously at all, wait a minute, you did what?
But see, we've heard the 10th Doctor say, I've convinced people to take their own lives, and I've done, I may not have done it by my own hand. So this is evidence of what the 10th Doctor was saying. And I think Russell T. Davies has gone so far as to say you could take this as being one of the events that started the Great Time War.
Yeah. Yeah, he's won this round, but he may have precipitated the Time War here.
Wow.
All right. Any other items before we get to our favorite scene?
Not for me.
What else? No, I don't. Oh, Caretaker was mentioned. The Cold Hill School, the guy that he first, it might have been Ratcliffe. It was one of the characters.
Yeah.
He asked him, "Oh, are you here for the caretaker position?" Now, I wonder, was that like a precursor to Peter Capaldi's Doctor being the caretaker?
Yeah, I think that's funny.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think so too, because if I would have definitely, when we saw that, said, "Oh, well, blah, 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 blah," back in Remembrance, if I would have known that. So yeah, it had to have been. Totally had to have. All right. So favorite scene, and I'll go first this time. Favorite scene. I really couldn't pinpoint one down. I almost wanted to say the baseball bat when she was hitting the Dalek, but I'm going to say Davros reveal because I just like Davros. So my favorite scene was Davros reveal. All right, Lee, favorite scene from you?
He's so nuts. This just shows what a nerd I am, I think, even more so than the fact that we're talking about Doctor Who. But I love more than anything else in this whole episode that they took the time to make this effect work. But when one of the Daleks is beaming in on the transmat, there's just a moment where we see a sort of an X-ray view and we can see the whole creature inside.
Yeah.
And that should settle once and for all how much of the inside space of that tank is occupied by a Dalek. And it's a lot. But it's still a blob, of course, but we can see that he's got sort of pseudopodia that are down inside the machine, like they would be operating part of the machinery and so on. It's just, there's a whole lot of thought that's put into that little moment. And I just love it so much. So that's really my favorite scene out of a lot of things in this series that I really love, but that's mine. Clarence is going through the window. I already know.
How do you? A window was involved, but not the window that I brought up earlier.
Okay.
I love the A scene. That's probably my number one, the A scene jumping through the window. But I can't get off this podcast without mentioning the Doctor with the tightrope umbrella. A good use of umbrella actually. To actually slide down the rope into the spaceship. I almost thought they were going to go 5 doctors and he was going to do like the James Bond crawl across the the line. I'm glad they didn't. The umbrella was used quite well, so I can appreciate that.
Well, I'd even forgotten about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. And, I want to give an honorable mention, and this is another tip of the hat to Sylvester McCoy. Like at the very beginning when they first arrive and they're at that van and he just walks in and just takes control or climbs in and just takes control without missing a beat.
Yeah. She's like, have you been helped? Can I? Yeah.
All right. So favorite quote. And Clarence, I'll start with you this time. Favorite quote.
Oh, man. So we didn't really talk about Mike, Sergeant Mike, but, he was whatever. He's kind of doing bad things there, but, he got his comeuppance, I guess. But he confronts Ace and he says, and this was in reference to him did he steal the, he knew what the, arm of Omega was, of the hand of Omega was. He knew what it was. And they started looking at him crazy. And, he makes the comment that I was just doing Mr. Ratcliffe a favor, to which Ace says, do me a favor and drown yourself. I'm like, whoa! I fell off my seat.
Oh, okay.
Time.
Meanwhile,
and I saw the sign your mom has in her window. Just want to mention.
Oh man, Ace don't take no bull, man.
Nope.
That one was so good that one's going to make my quote look downright sappy.
Well,
but that was good. So Lee, what was your favorite quote?
I'm tempted to go with just because I know that Sylvester loved saying it so much. I didn't expect 2 Dalek factions, and now I've got to make sure that the wrong ones don't get their grubby little protuberances on it. So,
oh wow, you do that very well.
Thank you so much. But really, if I have to pick a line from the script, I do also love this. The Doctor says, just shaking his head, tut-tutting, your species has the most amazing capacity for self-deception, matched only by its ingenuity when trying to destroy itself.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you got it. That's us, all right.
I'm glad you picked that one because I almost did. So I'm glad you picked it. The one I picked was every great decision creates ripples, like a huge boulder dropped in a lake. The ripples merge and rebound off the banks in unforeseeable ways. The heavier the decision, the larger the waves, the more uncertain the consequences. Just like that.
That's great.
All right. So what's also great? Final rating. And you know what? I'll start with this one. Final rating, because for all the things I've already said in this podcast about Ace and the Seventh Doctor, I'm going to give it a 4.75. I really, really, really enjoyed watching this, more so than any recent rewatching of a Doctor Who story that we've done on this podcast that has been in the classics. So I really enjoyed it. 4.75. Clarence, what say you?
I will give this 5 rainbow Dalek blasters out of 5.
There you go. Outstanding.
Right. All right, Lee.
I'm going to give it 5 grubby little protuberances. Same thing. Before we get away from it, 2 things actually. One of them not related to this show, but we didn't talk at all about seeing the Doctor's signature.
Okay, so can I do something real quick before we talk about that because I'll forget it. I'm going to give 0.25% of bacon sandwiches to make it a 5. The more I think about it. All right, so the Doctor.
You patted it in with bacon sandwiches.
Yes.
He writes a card, and there's an early Gallifreyan, an early look at Gallifreyan writing, and it's closed with a seal that looks almost like a question mark, but not exactly. I'll find a screenshot of it.
I remember that. And this is something that I did want to mention, and we'll briefly, real quick, talk about it. Part of this introduced this concept that and this is where I was trying to go whenever I was saying about Chibnall being brilliant in the sense of the Doctor being more than what we knew.
Right. And one of the reasons why I wanted us to now go look at more of Seventh Doctor stories, because that was the what's now called the Cartmel master plan. That Cartmel really did want to really go with that, to explore the mystery of the Doctor in ways that would be dealt with in the story, not literally covering him with question marks. But anyway.
Oh, boy.
But the other thing I wanted to mention, when I was listening to last week's episode, I realized that we said that Rory's story and The Raggedy Doctor were written by Stephen Moffat. Rory's Doctor was written by Neil Gaiman.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
And something else about that. Oh, we were also calling the later one Rory's story, but the one that Arthur Darvill, of course, does is Rory's story. And then the one that Caitlin Blackwood narrates is The Raggedy Doctor. Anyway, yeah. But yeah, I just want to make sure we gave props to Neil Gaiman for that. So anyway.
Cool for him. And thank you for remembering that.
Oh.
All right. So I'm going to remember that in order for us to close this podcast. Otherwise, we would be talking to infinity is to say and beyond and to infinity and beyond is for me to say, Lee Shackleford, where else could you be found on the internet?
I'm going to keep pushing people towards relativitypodcast.com, which is undergoing kind of a facelift because the show is on hiatus. So I'll tinker with the website instead.
Cool beans.
What about y'all?
All right, Clarence.
I'm going to point people to a contest that I'm running right now for Discussing Trek, which is open to anybody. It can be found at patreon.com/Discussing Trek. And the contest is actually Doctor Who related. So there is an image, and I'll give the post to Kyle to drop in the show notes. But there's an image of a certain doctor and a certain captain, and whoever can, create the best caption for that image could win a season 2 Star Trek Discovery Blu-ray and also a 1/2500 scale model of the Discovery. So check that out.
Awesome. Well, you know what? I think I will point everyone to discussingnetwork.com because that takes you to all of our shows and that we're working on. So yes, discussingnetwork.com. So as always, thank you everyone for joining us, and we will be back next time. You've been listening to the Discussing Network. Find out more at discussingnetwork.com.